You're listening to Travel Tales with Fergal.
The Travel Tales with Fergal podcast is a weekly interview series that hopes to fuel listeners' wanderlust while we all wait for post-pandemic travel. We may not be able to travel right now, but this podcast aims to share soul-lifting travel memoirs about daydream-worthy destinations.
What's magic about Après? The Après Ski, the atmosphere, the town, all part of it.
100% it is.
They'll talk about the season.
Yeah.
And, so you don't need to get technical.
No, I won't. That's the last thing I'm going to do. No. No.
And so what, so what I basically, as you know, like skiing,
the social
not only,
yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sean, you're very welcome to the podcast. Before we get into talking about your favorite topic, which is Après Ski, I wanted to thank you. You were on for the American special, and I never actually brought up this topic, that it was your idea to, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast, but it was actually, I don't think I named you, but you were the person that said I should do the podcast. So before we talk about Après Ski, I just want to say thanks a million.
Well, Fergal, I got to say, it's something that was glaringly obvious to me where your strengths lie. So I'm glad you took me up on my bit of suggestion, and you've taken it and ran with it, and it's very, very entertaining, and the guests you have and everyone that it's listened to it has really enjoyed it, and it's a credit to you, and I know it's a lot of work, and fair play to you.
So if you don't mind now, I'm going to do a quick quiz on all the previous guests I had, just to see if you actually really have listened.
Not a problem. Right? I've got notes here. Hit me. Yep.
Hello, and you're very welcome to Season 2. You just heard me tell my regular contributor, Sean O'Neill, that he will be sharing tales on what he euphemistically calls the social aspects of skiing. Après Ski is often as important as the slopes, and Sean shares fun après memories at the end of this episode. Before that, we have 8 fantastic guests, ranging from ski enthusiasts to 2 experts in Irish journalist Catherine Murphy, who gives a great overview of the best skiing in Europe, and the legendary ski instructor Warren Smith in Verbier. We cover a lot of ground. We go to Europe, Japan, Canada, and the US. I have some great guests lined up for Season 2, including rugby legend Paul Wallace next Tuesday, and I'd like you to please spread the word by sharing or recommending this podcast to friends if you enjoy it. Now, to give you a flavour of the upcoming guests from Season 2, listen now to economist David McWilliams, expat Annie Kennedy in Switzerland, and Canadian Randy Lewis from Randaddy's restaurant in West Clare. I had one simple question: where is your favourite ski resort? Everyone their favourite ski resort.
Davos is an amazing place to ski. There's a little town beside Davos called Wiesen, because Davos was too expensive, right? And there is an amazing mountain called what's it called? Anyway, so yes, the family have skied in Davos, right? And it is unbelievably expensive. We did it 2 years, and I said after, fuck this, we can't afford this, right? But there is an extraordinary, if you like being up on the sticks for a while, there's an extraordinary run from Davos to Clusters, okay? And there is a fantastic, it's an amazing skiing range, but it's too expensive. What happened was, after the first year, we thought, oh, okay, we hadn't really figured out, the way you go and you get excited. And second year, it was costing, I think it was like 25 euros for a plate of pasta for the kids at lunchtime. And I looked at Shan, I said, this ain't happening. So then we try to go skiing, if we can, to a place called Champoluc, which is in Italy, just over the mountain there. But the Davos, it's an extraordinary run from Davos to Clusters, but it's just too expensive. It's really, you want to be really wealthy to go there, but it's unbelievably beautiful. And if you get the chance to do the train from Zurich to Davos, it's beautiful. The train journey is fantastic. And the trains in Switzerland are cheap. There's actually all around, Davos is an area called Graubünden, and all around Graubünden are these beautiful, beautiful train journeys into the Alps, and they're really fantastic. They're magical. They're really magical.
Did you ski in Canada?
Yeah, I skied for about since from 5 years old to about 23, 24, 25.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so I skied all over Western Canada. I've skied, 15, 20 mountains around Western Canada. Yeah, rocky.
Is Canada very different?
The best places like Whistler. Like I lived in Whistler, Canada for a year.
Did you? Wow.
Year and a half. I lived in Banff, Alberta for a year. So I lived in Golden, BC, and around Revelstoke for quite a while. I lived around all those areas. Yeah, I love skiing. I miss it.
So which resort is the best in Canada for the skiing first?
Well, I guess number one resort, I think it could be in the world, is Whistler. Or it's the top 3 in the world. That to me it has everything you want. It has everything that anybody could dream of for adrenaline activities, for skiing and for winter, and just it's a phenomenal resort.
It's a beautiful town as well.
It's an amazing town. The Olympics were there. It's just like it's an amazing, like, their town. It has heated streets to the snow because it gets dumps of snow. So the streets are heated, so the snow melts when it hits the ground. Wow. I'm just getting flavors are coming to me. I'm thinking about adventure. I need to get out of this country right now.
Yeah, I know. It's the one thing about Ireland I find tricky. I'm so jealous, like you, being able to grow up and go skiing, or in Europe to be able to just hop in a car.
Yeah.
I think I'll go skiing this afternoon. It's the one thing we don't have in Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is one thing we don't have. And if it did have it, you could be sure I would be skiing. To ski is to travel, is, it's I always said to myself, in the next few years, I would love to see myself try and get a holiday home somewhere in a place that has amazing summers and amazing winters, so I could go there in the summer and go there in the winter time and get skiing and get the amazing mountain biking and stuff I used to know and grow up to love.
Yeah. So where do you live in Switzerland, actually?
I live in Zug, in Canton Zug, and it's about half an hour from Zurich. It's kind of in what they call central Switzerland. So it's a low-lying area, but surrounded by mountains. So surrounded by lakes and mountains, actually.
And how far are the mountains from you?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. Like you could be at 2,000 meters in 20 minutes. You could be at 4,000 meters in about an hour. So yeah, so it's surrounded by loads of different peaks and hills.
And where do you, like, for skiing then? Where do you go?
Yeah, I'd probably be biased towards our side of the country, and I suppose it depends on. For me, it depends on what level of skier you're at, right? So if you're kind of a beginner to intermediate, there's probably, I'd say somewhere like Andermatt or Engelberg is great. So when we have family coming over, we'd often go to one of those two. Engelberg is quite a well-known resort in our part of the world. Don't know, you've probably never heard of it, have you? No. And actually, there's not a lot of tourists go there. So you get a lot of Swiss, you get a lot of Germans, and you get a lot of the let's say, the foreigners living in Switzerland. But Engelberg is great because it has lovely, wide, open pistes. It gets a lot of sun, so it's one of those really sunny resorts. It's got a lot for the non-skiers as well. So if you've got, if the kids are too young to ski, or if you've got people not skiing, you've got, you can do snowshoeing. There's a big sledging run. There's an ice cave. There's a big suspension bridge at the very top of the resort. There's a tubing run as well, which is great fun. And then the great thing for me about Engelberg is if you're a really good skier and you're into off-piste, there's some brilliant off-piste in Engelberg. All pretty safe. They're kind of what they call the yellow runs. So they're controlled, and they'll do controlled explosions if they think there's going to be an avalanche or whatever. So if the yellow runs are open, then you can ski them, but they're not pisted in any way. So these are those kinds of runs where you go off the side of the piste and you're in kind of backcountry. So that'd be a big recommendation for me. One more I would say is Andermatt. And Andermatt's an interesting one. It's right beside the Gotthard Tunnel. You probably heard recently about the Gotthard Tunnel. They kind of made the records because I think it's the longest train tunnel in the world or something. And it's also a road tunnel, and it's quite a famous one for anyone living in Switzerland going down to Italy from central Switzerland. But Andermatt is just before the tunnel, and it used to be a massive army base for the Swiss Army. And so the army used to ski a lot there, but not many people would really consider going there. And they closed the army base a few years ago, and it's turned into a beautiful resort. They've kind of kicked it off with this almost 6-star hotel called the Cheddi. And this is kind of the ultimate in luxury. You kind of get a lot of celebs that come there they don't really want to be in Verbier, and they don't want to be in Gstaad or in Zermatt because they'll probably be seen and recognized. So Andermatt is the place where they go when they don't want anyone to see or recognize them. And again, lovely, lovely pistes and some brilliant off-piste. So it kind of caters for everybody. So they'd be my 2 recommendations on our side of Switzerland. And then the other side of Switzerland, you probably know what I'm going to say. It would definitely be Verbier. But one thing I would say is Verbier is not great for intermediate skiers. It doesn't have great pistes. Verbier is an advanced skiers kind of resort because it has the most incredible backcountry, off-piste runs. And it also has absolutely brilliant après ski, as you know. You and I know very well. So yeah, I think they'd be my three big recommendations.
We had 3 great guests on season 1 who all love skiing. Keith Wood, Irish journalist Philip O'Connor, who lives in Sweden, and RTE producer Taragh Loughry-Grant. If you haven't already checked out their episodes from season 1, then I'd really recommend them, and they're all available now.
Yeah, I love that idea of skiing, and that's how we got to know each other, which is through friends, but was through that sense of camaraderie that you have with it. Also, the sense of doing that with your kids, and we had 7 or 8 different families all in France skiing for years and years, and all learning along the way. And the crack that you have with that is just fantastic. But it's a great holiday to have. And
where you skied is Léger beside Morzine. That's, I have to say, it's my favourite place, particularly for families. Like it's a gorgeous resort, isn't it? Very relaxed, and
it is, but it's picture postcard.
Yeah.
And where you go, there's lovely restaurants on the mountain, and and the people are pretty friendly, but it's varying levels of difficulty, not too difficult, and I think it's great for us because it puts our ego back in the box. We tend not to go mad on it, and there's a few black runs, but not too many, and we're very careful when we go down those or not. But it's family friendly. It's an easy place to go. We got to know everybody, so we know all the instructors. We've friends who live there, and you kind of become part of the community, albeit only for a week or 2 every year.
Exactly. And would there be somewhere you'd go to if it wasn't, like if it was with mates rather than family? Is there a resort that you'd recommend?
I learned in Zermatt, which is much higher, much more difficult. I had a friend of mine who pretty much forced me to go skiing. So I thank him and curse him for that. But and that's a wonderful place. But what I loved about Léger actually is its ease, accessibility. It's only an hour from Geneva Airport. So when you're flying in, you're there very, very quickly. If you fly in the morning, you can be skiing in the afternoon. That makes it very easy. And it's, again, family friendly. But no, do you know what? I like skiing. And I think it's a lovely thing to do. I've skied in maybe 5 or 6 different places over the years. I'd still quite go back to Leger because I think it's nice and easy, and we're not skiing for the biggest challenge of all time. And that's one of the things when I sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I'm definitely getting towards being a bit of an old fuddy-duddy, is that I want to enjoy it. I'm not looking for a challenge. This is the challenge for me. This is relaxation and chilling out.
I love seeing those French guys, about 70 or 80, their wooden skis, just cruising down the hill,
Yeah, well, that won't be ever because neither of us are as fluent as they are.
No.
But there is something nice about that too, that's kind of part and parcel of it. It's a way of, for me, it's a lovely sociability, and skiing is incredibly sociable.
You never hear Irish people talking about Sweden as a skiing destination. Do people go skiing there? Or?
They do. It's huge. One of the things about COVID, and I'm writing about it at the moment, was that you have what's called a sports holiday here. Now, they're sort of dispersed over the country so that not everybody arrives at the skiing destinations together. So in Stockholm, it's the 9th week of the year. So all the Stockholm schools closed, and you pack the kids into the car and you go to somewhere, it could be 3, 4, 5 hours north, and you go and you ski. So it could be downhill skiing, could be snowboarding, or it could be cross-country skiing. Cross-country skiing is absolutely huge. So what the Sunday game is for us in Ireland during the summer, they have this winter studio. That's for the Swedes in the winter. That's the Sunday game, right? It starts at maybe 9 or 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. 3 or 4 hours of biathlon, of cross-country skiing, of downhill skiing. And to be honest, I always thought cross-country skiing was really boring. It's like jogging on skis, get out of here, Now, I'll watch it. I'm not a huge fan of doing it. But that and biathlon, I was lucky enough to cover biathlon at the Olympics in Pyeongchang recently, and the skill it takes to do that, to calm yourself down after pounding away around the track, I've just enormous respect for those athletes. But in terms of it really is a normal thing, and it's amazing to see the number of people who come over here and they're working on contracts for Ericsson, say, so they used to have a huge presence in Ireland, probably not as big anymore, but a lot of people come over here working, and all of a sudden they get into skiing because, we're about 2 hours north of Stockholm. You can find a pretty decent slope. And even if it's crowded, there's black slopes up there and people can get up there. What is it? Rumma Alpine, I think, is a few hours north of here. And that's a very popular destination. So a lot of, if you're young and single and don't have any children, you can get up at, say, 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. You can get the bus up there 2-3 hours. You're on the slope at 9 o'clock. And then they drive you back at 6 and you're back in, they might be in the L Dub pub in the centre of town for 9 or 10 o'clock. And it's not that expensive, so it might cost you, 30, 40 euros for the pass for the day.
Wow.
But that's actually pretty good when you think that, in Ireland, you don't have those options. So you'd have to fly down to France or whatever. Now, I think you have this idea that the Alps, the Austrian, Italian, French Alps, that they're really the place to be, but they're quite expensive, quite exclusive, and quite hard to get to. Whereas if you're living in a city like Stockholm already, then it's pretty close by. So it's quite easy. And the Swedes wouldn't see it as being this, snobby thing, So even when you go to school here, like my kids are teenagers, once a year, twice a year, they'll be put on a bus and brought up to these places and they'll be taught how to ski, And it's funny, where we live, a lot of our neighbours would be from Iran. Their parents or grandparents would be from Iran, from Turkey, Kurdistan, Eritrea, Somalia, this kind of thing. And it's funny because they don't have that culture of skiing, but kids pick it up so quickly, usually when they're smaller because they're so close to the ground and they don't care about falling. Exactly. And I absolutely love to see, because, if you look at skiing essentially as a sport, it's very, very white. And I mean that in every sense of the word, So we very seldom see a person of colour taking part in the Olympics. And, this is the thing that they don't really get stuck into it. There's been a couple of lads I've seen who took up ice hockey and who ended up playing in the NHL, So it would be great to see people from different backgrounds making the jump into skiing, because after the Pyeongchang Olympics, actually, I decided I was going to teach myself to snowboard from YouTube because I just have no patience with anybody telling me to do anything. So I rented a snowboard. I think we were up there for 3 or 4 days and I got the hang of it. But boy, jeez, I've never had bruises like it in my life.
Do you have a favourite skiing place for fun and for skiing, or two places,
There's one place here, right? My wife's family are from her father's family are from 5 hours north of Stockholm, in a place called Härjedalen. And it's one of those places that Swedes will drive to. So, when we get to that famous week 9, they'll always drive up there. And our father still has a cabin up there, fairly rudimentary thing. Again, we need to get away from the idea that it's like, it's like having a chateau in Bulgaria or whatever. That's not what it is at all, right? So up in Vemdalen, in a place called Björnrike, the Bears Kingdom, that's where I learned to ski. And that was where I got the skis on the first time. And my wife went, she went, I'll show you the basics. I went, no, off you go, because that was going to end in divorce, right? And then our parents stood at the bottom of the children's slope and they watched me teach myself to ski. And it was the funniest thing they've ever seen, right? until they thought that I was going to kill myself. Because 6'3", 90 kilos, Gaelic footballer, basketball or martial arts, none of that is any use to you when you're learning to ski, right? And I went down more times than Mike Tyson's sparring partners in the course of learning to do it. But it worked for me because, like I say, I have that the perfect blend of arrogance and stupidity to think, I will eventually be able to do this. And that was where I learned. And it's still the place that I like to go back to because I progressed from there, from the kids slopes to the green slopes. I remember one time actually skiing down a green slope and thinking, oh, this is okay. So I went over sort of a little bump where you're going to leave the ground, and I came down and I didn't land properly. And I didn't wear a helmet, so my head hit the deck. And when you watch a cartoon and you see the bells sort of spinning around, that's exactly what it was like. I learned a lesson that day. But that's just one of those places I love to go back there because, again, it's to do with memory. It's to do with remembering. That was, maybe it must be 20 years ago now, 19 years ago now that I first went skiing. And it's remembering who I was then and the person that I've become. And also that I eventually conquered that mountain. I was eventually able to ski down that without the bells ringing in my head. So yeah, Bjornrike, Vemdal, and anywhere up there, Vemdal, in that part of Hayadal, absolutely beautiful places to go and quite easy to access as well.
I learned skiing when I was 30 in Verbier in Switzerland, and the girl, it was a posh English girl who was teaching me, and she'd been teaching Clive Woodward to ski snowboard the day before. But she kept going to me. At first she was going, putting your hands out. Imagine you're holding a tray of champagne. It's kind of a posh resort. But then she kept going to me, don't worry, it'll come back to you. And I kept going, I'm Irish. I've never skied before. She just couldn't get her head around this concept of a 30-year-old who'd never skied.
This is the thing. When you stand up, your balance is one way, right? But when you stand on skis or skate, it's something completely different. And it's realizing that the center of gravity shifts from the middle of your chest to your hips, right? Now, the other thing we mentioned mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu earlier on, that's all about the hips. It's all about controlling the hip. And when that clicks for you, when you get that, then you've broken the code of skiing, right? It's like learning a language, eventually everything falls into place and it clicks, or the kids learn to read. Eventually it starts to make sense to them. But until you get to that point, there are many, many falls and many, many bruises and bandages until that point, and not being able to get out of the bed the following morning, but it really is. It's a lot of fun. And I would say to people, even though I'm 49 years old now, you were 30 when you learned. I was probably maybe a year or two older than that. But I'd say you're never too old. Just go out there, find some posh English girl or some Swedish teenager, and eventually they'll get you to learn it,
And you're right. One thing about skiing more than other, I like to not go back to the same place. Yeah. But one thing about skiing is actually going back is great because you conquer a mountain that you couldn't do the year before. Yeah. So for skiing, it's a little bit different.
Oh, yeah, I was kind of upset with myself because there was one day I went to interview the Swedes in Pyeongchang, and what I didn't realize going there was that the ski slope was open to the public on this particular day, right? I've always had this thing of I want to try to ski, one or two of the things, or in some of the places that the Olympics is. A lot of people do it as a matter of course. You'll have journalists who bring, like photographers that I know, they bring their skis and they go up in the lift before the competition at 6, 7 in the morning, and then they ski down and they pick their position. So there's certain positions that they're allowed to pick, and the earlier you get there, the better chance you have. You get your pick of the positions. So they have their skis with them. I don't, but there was a place there, and the difference here was you could have hired skis or a snowboard just to give it a go. So I've never done an Olympic slope. I'm just hoping that somebody will take me to the next Olympics, which I think is in Beijing in China, and I get a chance to do that.
Taragh, could you tell me your favorite resort, 1 for skiing and 2 for crack?
Okay, I think Kitzbühel for skiing, and it's a slightly older crowd. Oh God, maybe not now, but it used to be a slightly older crowd. So I think for crack, I think Zelensee in Austria is really nice. It's great. I mean, you can hear music starting to kind of waft up the mountainside from about 4 o'clock, and I think that there's just great bars, great atmosphere, people from all over the place. And then Seoul is another place. I used to work there in Seoul in a guest house, which was really gas. I used to do breakfast and then serve at breakfast and help make some of the food, prepare the food, then got to ski in the afternoon and then served the evening meal, and even DJ for maybe about 5 to 10 people who were in the bar. But no, it was good, but not as good possibly as Zelensee.
Yeah. Wow.
What about for you?
For me, I would pick Léger in France for that's lovely. It's very relaxed. It's small town.
Good skiing.
But for skiing, it's lovely. And Saint Anton, it's Austria as well. Saint
Yes,
Anton.
I've never got to go.
Yeah, that's a
I
real.
always got the impression it was pricey.
No, not at all, actually. And it's real. It's similar, as you say, like the music's going in the afternoon, and they've got a bar like where they say they sell the most amount during the winter. It's in all of Europe. It's the most beer. So everyone skis to this bar and goes on the beer, and then you go out and it's dark and you look for try and find your skis and you have to ski down the rest of the mountain.
Yeah.
So it's famous. So I remember one time coming out and putting my skis on and, not knowing which was up or down and just falling straight over.
I remember one time I was very new to skiing at the time, and I was studying in Austria, so I had no money, so if you can ski in a budget in any way or shape or form, I probably have done it, but and work your way through it. But so I came out and somebody gave me very kindly a glass of glühwein, first time having it, not really realizing it is, I suppose, mulled wine, but glühwein, and it was gorgeous. So I threw it into me, and then they were saying, "Oh, look, well, we have one for the road." I went, "Of course, this is great." I rolled down. I think every time I got back on my skis, I just toppled over, got another few meters down, but got up again. Oh, I'm not down yet. Let's go again. And after that, I think I separated out my skiing from my Après Ski, bit like you.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking at an article during the week because Ishkil are talking about, the famous place from last year. They're talking about opening up for the new season. God. And one of the things they were saying is like, for the hospitals, that so many people go in there with injuries that to take up space,
I was so conscious of that. I was just thought, I do not want to be an Egypt who, because of one too many of two glühweins, did not want to be the one. So I copped on after that. I think I walked down the rest of the way backwards, nearly holding my skis, just so that it wouldn't happen. You didn't ever injure yourself, did you?
No, but I've been to Kitzbühel as well, actually, and I love that.
What do you think?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I kind of thought I found it great. Well, actually, one of my friends, we were all in bed one night and he went out for a quick walk, and then he discovered this nightclub, which was a great spot in Kitzbühel. And it was full of these, we call them, Euro trash. They looked like German princes, and they were drinking champagne, but they were opening up the bottles with swords. So yeah. So we felt like the poor Irish guys in the corner. Well, there's a bit
of that, because like Kitzbühel has a reputation of being quite a wealthy spot as well, an expensive place to go, and maybe then that nightclub, it missed me, it passed me by. So at least if you were the poor Irish cousins, I wasn't even on the radar. That's where I was at. So yeah, maybe it's time to go back. Maybe see if these princes are still there with their knives, and oh God, you know what? Going back anywhere and getting on the slopes anywhere again will just be a go.
Exactly. I interviewed two ski experts especially for this episode, the Irish journalist Catherine Murphy, who gives a wonderful run through the best ski resorts in Europe. Then we have the legendary Warren Smith, who's based in Verbier and is considered one of the top ski instructors in the world. Yeah. Catherine, you did a brilliant article in the Irish Independent in December about the ski season ahead. And I know it changes daily. We have to say that caveat, and it's the $60 million question. But how do you think the season in 2021 looks at the moment?
Well, hi, Fergal. First of all, thanks for having me. Challenging season. I think a lot of ski companies and resorts are really hoping. I think their measure of success for this season is to survive and rebuild for 21-22. So you have tour operators like Top Flight and Crystal Learned already selling their programs for 21-22. We've seen the demise of some ski companies. High Life, Irish chalet company. They closed up in May this year, I think.
So you're the foremost, I would say, the ski writer in Ireland. So how did you get into that? Like, have you always loved skiing?
Well, I'm a journalist. I was a rookie journalist. I think I was 22 years old, working for the Evening Press. I don't know if you remember the Evening Press.
Of course.
It's long since gone. And I was asked to do an article on travel for the following year. And a travel agent on the phone said to me, "Oh, you have to write about skiing." And her enthusiasm was just infectious. Yeah. So I just went straight up to the ski club in Kildare and did 4 classes. Wow. And then went skiing the following year with a group of friends to Bulgaria. So I was 24, I think, when I started to ski, and I just got the bug. I just loved the whole holiday experience, the winter experience, the mountains, love the mountains. I'd been a very non-sporty person up until then. I was bookish, and that all changed. So it took me about 4 or 5 holidays to get the ski. You know, I was woeful at the start. So it took me quite a while to get the taste for, and I decided I quite liked the speed, and that was it. And I've loved it. Yeah, it's been the passion ever since. And it's, I would say I'm sure a lot of people who are passionate about skiing say this, it changed my life. It's just been a great passion, and yeah, it's just changed my life for the better.
Yeah, I know. It's I can even see it with my kids, you know, they've got the bug, and it's like they feel like their civil rights are being abused, not being able to go skiing, you know.
I was going to say it's a wonderful gift for any parent to give their children, but the flip side of that is it becomes an expensive, wonderful gift to give your children. You've got to pay until they reach 21 or whatever. So,
for resorts, do you think is there a different personality for the different resorts, like between France, Italy, Austria?
I do. I mean, I think there's a different personality between regions within France and between style of resorts as well in France. Yeah. But, you know, Austria, obviously, as you know, is known for its coziness, the gemütlich, pardon my terrible accent. So that coziness, and the Austrian Après. I hadn't been to Austria for a couple of years, and I did a trip, I think 2 winters ago, and you just walk into a bar and you just feel it. It's just a different atmosphere, kind of an electric atmosphere. And it's just that very cozy, lively thing. And France, then, I mean, people talk about French resorts. Oh, they're all purpose-built. I'd never go skiing in France. It's not true. You do have the purpose-built resorts like Tignes, Avoriaz, which I love, Val Thorens, Flaine, all those places. But you also have very traditional Savoyard villages. You can't compare Saint Martin de Belleville, which is at the base of the Three Valleys, which is this tiny little village, very laid back, with, you know, all these little hamlets dotted around with beautiful chalets. You can't compare it to Val Thorens, which is at the top of the Three Valleys, but they're both in the same ski area, so very different. Italy, of course, you know, just the stupefyingly beautiful scenery of the Dolomites. And the Italians, I always say, they love their passeggiato or promenade. They love Après Ski. For them as promenading, you know, parading through Cortina in their furs and their nice gear and having a glass of wine. And Switzerland, I find it quite hard. Maybe you have an opinion on that. I spend a lot of time in Switzerland. But in terms of how it's different, it's got that beautiful postcard scenery, of course, absolutely stunningly gorgeous places. I mean, just incredible. And perhaps it's a little bit more genteel in terms of its après and its, you know, those kind of scenes. But yeah, and then where else? Where we talk about, I haven't actually skied in Germany yet. I've hiked the Zugspitze, but I haven't skied it. So I can't have, I know I've been to Garmisch, which is beautiful. Again, a beautiful town. Just a lovely place to hang out in. So
when I was in college, I spent the summer in Munich, and I went to Garmisch for a weekend, you know, in the summertime. And I was like, I just was amazed. Yeah. And so I fell in love with the Alps in the summertime before I did in the wintertime. Well,
a lot of people who live in the Alps say they go for the winter, but they love it for the summer. It's just, the hiking and all the different activities. So.
And would you have a preference then out of those countries? I know it's a tricky question, but...
Well, people always say, oh, Murph, sorry, my nickname is Murph. Murph loves France, because I'm very fond of the Three Valleys, because that's where I learned to ski off-piste, and that'll be forever in my heart, you know, just vast off-piste up around the whole Three Valleys. So yeah, I love France for the big ski areas. So Three Valleys, Paradis Ski, La Plaine, Les Arcs, and, you know, just being able to get lots of kilometers under your skis on a given day. But, you know, I have to say, I love everywhere. I do love the Dolomites. But my favorite, if you ask me what my favorite mountain is, it's going to be the Four Valleys in Switzerland, Verbier, Montfort, because I was lucky enough to spend most of a season there, over 10 years ago. But I just love that mountain for it's got a lot of, I know you were talking to Warren Smith, so you've probably heard all this before.
No.
It's got a lot of lift accessible off-piste.
Yeah.
And it's just, we used to have a couple of routes that we loved doing, the Grep Mont Blanc off-piste. We just loved that. And that was our special day out, the Stairway to Heaven, which is a boot pack up a steep slope to ski powder down the other side. Montgelé, where I had a little injury last February, but maybe we won't talk about that.
No, I do want to hear about that.
Randaddy, lots of off-piste. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So are you more into off-piste now, or is it a bit of both?
I would have been big into off-piste. Probably the peak of it was 10 or 12 years ago. Myself and friends did the Haute Route between, actually that was longer, Fergal, God. So that's a big ski, it's a classic ski touring route between Chamonix and Zermatt. And it's absolutely, if you're someone who's into off-piste, it's a fabulous thing to do. I just love.
Is it hard to do? Because I went through a phase where I was reading up about it, trying to convince some friends, but is it difficult, or is it more endurance?
It's endurance. You know, we did the Haute Route with an Irish guide, Robbie Fennelon, at the time, and he said at the time, you know, you don't need to be a brilliant skier. You can be an intermediate skier to go ski touring. I think that depends on the terrain. If you're going to be handling powder, or a lot of powder, you need to be a good skier. The skinning part of it, the uphill part of it is tough. Definitely, it's an all over body workout, and it definitely requires endurance. But you get stronger as the days go by. That's the thing, Fergal. You know, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So we did a lot of that. Well, a fair bit of it 10 years ago, and then we've got older and lazier. So I'm trying to get back into it at the moment. And last year I had a couple of days ski touring. So in, where was I? Obertauern in Austria. I did a morning ski touring. That was interesting because I had a big night out the night before. And then I had another day somewhere else, which I can't remember. Verbier was where I was on a ski touring trip, but I had a little ACL injury. Nothing to do with the train or skiing. It's just it's a moment in time injury, ACL, as I'm sure you know. So that put paid to my ski touring on that trip.
And that was that one. Did you have to get ski lifted? Was that the one?
That's the one. I was, we were very embarrassing. We were skiing with Javier de la Rue. He's a champion snowboard, ex-free ride world tour champion. He's a lovely, lovely guy. You should check out. Actually, he does a great podcast based around environmentalism and skiing and snowboarding. He's a snowboarder. So basically, we'd gone onto this. Onto a steepish slope, and Javier was down the end talking to one of the group, and I didn't have a fall. I just did a stop turn and I heard the pop, and the knee wasn't completely gone, but it was just wobbling. It wasn't right. So the guide, we were with a French mountain guide, he was brilliant. He said, look, we're going to have to call I wasn't able to ski down, so we had to call a helicopter. So I had to be winched. For the first 5 minutes, I was suspended in midair by cable. Wow. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. It was brilliant. I loved it.
Were you terrified, or were you scared at all, or was it just
not at all? I've friends who are into hang gliding and paragliding, so I've done a few tandem flights over the years. So I've been in the air before, but obviously it's different. You're just hanging from a cable, but you've got a rescue guy making sure you're okay, and obviously you would completely trust the mountain rescue team. They're brilliant, and I loved it because you're flying. Wow. You're in midair, you're right up next to the rock faces, and for me it was a big adventure, costly adventure, but luckily I had good travel insurance.
Yeah, God, because all I know is every time I see those, when I see a helicopter going past me, I get the heebie-jeebies. I'm a nervous wreck wherever I am. I'm like literally crawling down the mountain after that when I see it,
No, it was me that day. But as I say, it wasn't because, people say, oh, off-piste skiing is very dangerous. It was nothing to do with the fact that it was off-piste.
For families then, where, like a resort for families, where would you recommend?
Yeah. Well, I think, for young families or maybe beginner families, you don't need you want a small resort where it's easy to get around. And I do think the ski Welt in Austria is a great, I don't know whether you've skied there much yourself, it's 270 or 80 kilometers of linked resorts. So little resorts like Elmau, Westendorf. I mean, if you stay in the Hotel Post in Westendorf, you literally step out the door, walk across the street, pick your skis up in the ski hire shop, and the chairlift, the baby slope, the nursery slope is right there, and the chairlift up to the rest of the resort. So the ski Welt, definitely. I do think the French Pyrenees, places like Cotteret, Luz Ardiden, the Catalan Pyrenees, but they wouldn't be offered by Irish tour operators. You would have to, that would be DIY trip, hire a car and organise your own stuff. Places like La Molina, La Masaya, Portanay, and Baquera Brett, then further up into the Val d'Aran. And, you know, Andorra obviously is a brilliant one. I've seen the ski school and the instructors in operation in Andorra, Saldeo, and they're just brilliant. They're English speaking. They just put lots of fun into the classes. And if you've got teenage children, race courses, free ride courses, freestyle for teenagers. So I think that's always a good bet for families. Maribel, the Three Alps, I think, because of the kind of slopes they have. They have some nice intermediate slopes. Chambrous in the Isère region, also in France. I was there, I think, 2 winters ago. Again, it's a purpose-built area, but just really good value on apartments. Just incredibly good value on apartments, so it won't break the bank. I know Crystal Ski talk about Passo Tonali a lot for families. So again, that's very popular with them. And what do you think? I don't have a family. I don't have children. So that's always
where I've been going is Léger in France, which I just love because it's a lovely little picturesque town and very easy. And again, the French, the ski instructors were French, but they were lovely. They're really good. They were really good with the kids. And it's a nice place to ski. It's easy enough little area, quite relaxed. So that's where I like. I have to sit in my
it's lovely. And someone was mentioning the fact that if people are worried about taking gondolas or cable cars this winter, that you can get around Léger pretty well on the Chauvin side. Is that right? Without having to take.
Exactly. And actually, I read that, and I was going silver lining because I was in my head going, I'd be, you know, it is true. But I was going, you know, normally when I'm there, I'd be cursing, but now. That's actually a good thing.
It's a bonus. You know? It's a plus. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So definitely Léger for families. I have a lot of friends who go there. Another place, one of my friends does his winter seasons in La Tuile, and he hates every time I mention La Tuile, literally, stop talking about it. I don't want people to know about it. But for me, Crystal Ski have it in their program, and it's in the Aosta Valley. It's linked to La Rosière in France. So if you have a family where someone's a good skier, they've got plenty of terrain. There's a new free ride area, new in the last 2 years, on the La Rosière side called Mont Valaison. So you've got a bit more challenging terrain. But for families, it never gets that busy. You've got these apartments at the base of the lifts in La Tuile, and it's just so easy. You just walk out of your apartment and you, again, step onto your skis and off you go. And the prices are great. It's a friendly place. You've been there for a few days. Everyone knows you. And I suppose that's another thing we should mention for families is mountaintop villages, isn't it? Places like Avoriaz, Murren in Murren, my pronunciation is terrible, in Switzerland, is a beautiful mountain village, absolutely beautiful. Or where else? Where's the other place we were thinking about? Yeah, La Plan, Les Arcs are all great for families because you step out of your hotel onto the slopes.
And then for the other group who are, say, people in their 20s, like who Après Ski is as much a part of the skiing.
Well, I suppose there's a long list, isn't there?
I know.
We all know, we're all familiar with St. Anton and the crazy scenes and the crazy kangaroo and the Mousseverge, just big party scene. Verbier again, the Farinay. I used to go years ago. I don't go anymore. In France, you've got La Folie Douce chain. So La Folie Douce is, it has that very cabaret style, which is great fun. You're outdoors. I tend to think in terms of bars I've enjoyed. So I've definitely had good après in the Silver Bullet and Bad Gastein. Saalbach is a good spot. When you arrive in Saalbach on a Saturday afternoon, you can feel that energy. You can feel that buzz, And Chamonix, I've loved Chamonix for great live music scene. But as I say, my favourite thing these days is a tiny village bar, where I can just sit at the bar and have a good glass of wine. There's a wine bar in Val d'Isère, like La Baquera, I think it's called.
And actually now you say
somewhere in my notes there.
The last time I was in, my last place to ski in was in Saint Anton, but I can't remember the name. It was a little village just outside, but we ended up skiing there every day. And we ended up in a little bar. So we were in Saint Anton, but we ended up being in this little bar outside, you know what I mean, in a village.
Yeah.
I only used one bar,
You only did, exactly, and one friend.
Yeah. And tell us, do you have a favourite resort? I know it's probably a yucky question, but what's the first one that comes into your head when I say that?
I say the same thing to people as I think I already said. I'm very fond of the Three Valleys and Val Thorens. I'll always love Val Thorens because it introduced me to off-piste skiing. Yeah. But I would say my favourite mountain, and that is definitely the the Montfort, the Four Valleys in Switzerland. Yeah, just because I'd got to spend that extra time there and loved it. But I love everything. There isn't a resort in the world that I don't like, basically. And
you probably give it, you could give a different answer every day, really, couldn't you?
Yeah.
How long have you been in Verbier?
I've been in Verbier since '94, so quite a long time. Yeah, it's my 26th season this year.
Wow.
I'm getting old, Fergal. I am, I'm sort of I'm 48 at the moment.
Has it changed a lot in the or not?
A lot, yeah. I mean, it has. It's changed a lot, and Verbier is great. It still retains its, it's people are passionate about skiing. It's got a core skier mentality. There's a great atmosphere in the resort most of the time. It's also got a great summer as well. So, if you come in here to get on the e-bikes or just go and, hiking or whatever, it's awesome, as you know. But no, I mean, there's a couple of step changes, from my side. When I first opened up the school here, I was the first British ski school to open in or whatever, British Irish. I'm half Irish, half British. So first school to open up with an English speaker, as in like the English guy comes over, opens his school up, and that was in '94. And a lot of Irish love Verbier. People come over and they get involved, and that's great. And the level of instruction is great, I think. So
and your place is very famous. So it's called Warren Smith's Academy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's purely narcissistic sort of title.
That's okay. Well, it's good name recognition.
It was because we made videos back in the about 99, 2000, whatever. We used to make DVDs, and it was the easiest way to get the message across in the DVDs. But the name stuck, and then a lot of articles that were coming out, and that was it. We just put because it was only me at the start, you see. So that's why it was like that. And then obviously now we've got a team and a really good crew of people around us,
and my impression is that so you do like from beginners to advanced, but you're particularly famous for the advanced kind of training off piste and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, intermediate and advanced. Yeah, I mean, basically, I think the classic skier, that's come out, they've done a week ski holiday. They can ski, they can get about, but they want to get a good foundation. They want to get the confidence to go off piste, and it's that usual thing that it's a very different story from jumping on your skis and skiing down a piste, turning left and right. Everything feels lovely. It's a glorious day and blah blah blah. But when you take that skier into steeps, moguls or powder snow, it can feel very different, very quickly, and we cater a lot for that market. So that's like an intermediate, classically stuck on a plateau, wants to get off the plateau, get the confidence up, and get off piste or ski steeper slopes or ski moguls or whatever.
Are you in other places?
We run a regular program in Japan, so we're in Niseko in Japan, and we have we've been doing that 12 years, and we take usually around 70 or 80 skiers every year to Japan. Wow. And we spend a couple of weeks down there, and that's been a regular thing for us. We were one of the first, I guess, foreigners to get into doing courses like that. We go to Canada, we go to Canada to run a heli ski camp, and that works really well for us. And we also go to Champeluc in Italy. But we basically we have different locations, but our main base is Verbier. But we are opening in Andermatt this year. So Andermatt is a new kind of destination for us. And the thing with Andermatt is a friend of mine, Rob Sawyer, used to have the Faraday Hotel in Verbier. Has just been asked to take on this new hotel in Andermatt, and we're going to be opening our school up there this winter. So it's a new. We've not announced it yet. It's a new bit of news.
And where is that? Where is that?
Andermatt is sort of on the way towards between Verbier and Zurich, you could say.
Okay.
So that's a new location and interesting. Cool. Swiss German sort of area.
And what's it like in Japan? What's the skiing like there?
Unbelievable, off the charts. Yeah, really. I mean, Japan's like it's a mecca for get into ski light powder. And one of the reasons, we went there to shoot some photographs, and again, it was another location. We ended up shooting a picture, and it was used as a big vocal ski campaign. But the location itself is it's great for people that want to learn to ski powder, that don't necessarily have the same success rate, you could say, in Europe, because the weight of powder in Europe is heavier, so it's more difficult to try and ski through. In Japan, it's so light because of the Siberian sort of drying out of, it's such a dry air that the powder you ski, I mean, you could almost like a snow plow through a whole powder field and still get down it. It's that light, And
where do you fly into? Do you fly into Tokyo, or where do you go?
So Sapporo, for the North Island, you fly into Sapporo, or Tokyo if you're skiing in the South Island. But the lighter powder that you get is usually in the North Island.
And is it expensive compared to Europe, or?
It's about the same. It's something quite similar. A lot of people would get down to Japan. They'd use air miles, or they'd book a flight for around £600-700 to get down there and return. It's not too bad, if you think about it. That's quite a long distance and quite a good value for it. And then transfers are pretty good internally. It used to be difficult with the language, but the last sort of 6-7 years, it's got a lot better. Everyone seems to speak English there, and it's good. It's a good product for people. Yeah.
Is there a resort that you would say for families that you would recommend?
A great resort that we've been using a lot is Cervinia, because it's kind of, it's up at 2,100 meters, and at that altitude, people can get really easy access to the lifts that you can sort of ski in, ski out. And I think that's a big thing for families is ski in, ski out. You don't want to be lugging on and off buses and and doing the whole sort of runaround. It's all about that. So from our point of view, a great place that we've been sort of using and testing is Cervinia. Cervinia is also really well priced for families, but the great thing is it's a guaranteed snow location, because you can get up to 3,900 meters right on your doorstep. And there's also the sort of fun factor that you're at the bottom of the Matterhorn. So you're looking up at the Matterhorn. It's like, wow, if you want to sort of have a few other things to do on your family holiday, that is something quite different. So Cervinia's been great. We've put in a lot of time there. We actually use it ourselves for training, not so much for family holidays. But if you're going during a normal time in the winter, it's a great place that you can stroll up and down the high street. Lifts are right where the high street is in town, and you're guaranteed snow. Where do you fly into to go there? Cervinia, you can fly to Geneva. You can also fly to Milan. And Turin is super close. So Turin is, it's just over an hour, but Milan's an hour and 45 minutes. So, so that's pretty cool. It's my dog, Woody. Hang on, he's a lovely dog. Yeah, he's always interested in what's going on. And do you spend the summer there? We spend our summers in Cervinia. So our summers, they run the glacier, throughout the summer up on Cervinia, and it's we've had days in the summer in August where it's like, we're skiing powder, and everyone's like, what the hell, you're running a video. We have a channel on our YouTube, that people can actually see every week. Brilliant. Yes, it's recommend it. I watch. It's my ski porn. I watch it all. I didn't realize that's where the summer ones were, but it's like my route. Coming into, once it comes into December, I start looking at these, and I just love them. Like you've been doing them for the last few days, and I just love it. Love seeing this. It's like the November time. We a lot of people request to say, look, we want an early season course. We want to do something before the winter starts, and that's what we use. We use Cervinia. And it's a no-brainer. You get in there in early November, and you're skiing in fantastic conditions, and you're quite often you'll ski pristine snow that you won't get quite a lot of other times during the winter. When people are out in January, February weeks, they might get average snow. It could be icy in places. The Cervinia stuff is always bang on point. Great snow, great corduroy. And tell us then, what about for Après Ski? Verbier is brilliant. Farinay Hotel is a great spot, but what are the resorts, bar Verbier, would you say for Après? St. Anton's the obvious sort of thing that always crops up, right? So you've got the classic Crazy Kangaroo and all the bar. St. Anton's famous for Après Ski. There's no two ways about it. Ischgl is obviously uber famous and has some next level kind of crazy parties that go on. I don't even know if I can handle Ischgl actually these days. I'm probably getting too old for it, but it's like that's an incredible place. They put on that party at the start of the season, at the end of the season. They get headline acts from something you might see in Hyde Park in London. They literally they hit that same sort of note. But I think Austria is that mecca of après ski. You know, that is, there's no doubt about it. And I remember I first worked, you know, ski teaching in Austria, in Seefeld when I was a kid, and we had the most, you know, Jesus, I mean, I couldn't even talk to you about it on this podcast if it goes, but you know, we had some really crazy times, and I think I was quite well tuned into Stroh rum, you know, and there's 80% alcohol, 160% proof bottles of this stuff running around town, and you're like, oh my God, you got no money to do anything at that age, and we were off our trolleys on it. It was great, but Austria, top place. I mean, Switzerland's great as well. You know, the Swiss do après ski, you know, and the Fahrenheit, where is one of our partner hotels, it won an award a couple of years ago. It was the second best après ski in I think it was a European voted thing. So that was something that was quite interesting as well. But I think Austria has to always reign number one on that.
So I really appreciate you giving me your time. So there's just one last question that I ask everybody, and it's, if you take 4 deep breaths and imagine your happy place from your travels or wherever, where would that be and why?
I mean, my happy place has got to be the top of Montfort in Verbier. You know, it's a great area to decide where you're going to go, what you're going to do off piste, put some skins in your backpack. But I've had some of my best memories in my skiing career has been going off the back of Montfort. Choosing an area of all the different bowls and couloirs you can sort of hike or walk to, and just getting to ski some great, steep, awesome powder up at a great altitude, quite gnarly in places. And it's where I've had a lot of my spills and all the other sort of things that go with it, but great memories. And you know, to see a view that you get at the top of Montfort, you're looking at Zermatt Matterhorn, you turn around, you've got the Mont Blanc in one direction, and you really get the whole picture of the Alps right on your doorstep. It's a very happy place for me.
It would not be a ski special without chatting about the all-important Après Ski. So next I have Sean O'Neill to talk about that. Sean is a bit of an expert about snow. He is Director of Corporate Communications at Transport Infrastructure Ireland, and you might recognise his voice as he's the guy on the radio telling us about safety on the roads whenever there are big storms. A tabloid once memorably had an article on him with the headline, "Mr. Grit takes no shit." So Sean is always my sidekick on ski trips, and I think this chat hopefully conveys the giddiness of being away on a ski trip with your mates. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did doing it. Just to get into the mood, I've got a little glass of Bailey's here to feel like we're actually on the slopes.
Well, I've got a nice Merlot, so I think I'm doing good. I think I'm doing
More
well.
importantly, off the slopes, because this podcast, this episode, the ski special, is talking about skiing. But I would believe, and I think you'd agree with me, that après ski and the social aspects of skiing are very much part of it, aren't they?
Very much so. I think for me personally, it's the opportunity to get together with old friends, and you and I know each other since childhood, and it's an opportunity to catch up between wives and kids and work and life in general. For me personally, it's the most important part of skiing is catching up with your friends. And I know obviously there may be an indulgence here and there, but it's great meals, good bit of laughing, and just I enjoy that. I love it. It's an escape for me, and that's really where I get the joy out of skiing, quite frankly.
And actually, if you think about it, we sort of revert to our teenage selves when we're on the slopes, don't we?
Yeah, tendency is that. Yes, I think the beauty of being in the fresh air and at altitude is something that gives you a certain sense of zest. And then you realize, wait a second here, I'm here with my oldest buddies and we're just going to have a good time and let's enjoy it. And the skiing becomes secondary for me. It's kind of like, all right, let's get down the mountain. No big deal.
And so what I've noticed is there's a trend when we ski, and I think people will relate to it in the après ski, is as the ski week goes on, we spend less and less time on the mountain.
It becomes, I noticed the fog's coming in on Wednesday, Thursday, and also you're like, oh, you know what? After breakfast, I'm thinking we might as well just put the skis up near the pub or whatever we're going, and just leave it there for the day. No, I think, yes, you're right. I think there's a why not? And I can go up and down a mountain, no problem. I used to snowboard when I was a kid, and I gave it up when my knees started giving out. But then I switched to skiing, and because I didn't know how to ski, but I played ice hockey. Skiing wasn't a big deal. It didn't take that much, and I'm low to the ground, so it doesn't take a lot for me to just get down a mountain. I'm like, okay, that's done. Let's take these ski boots off and go to the pub, and I do enjoy it, and I do.
There's nothing like that feeling. Actually, now you say it, I kind of give a little satisfied sigh there when I think that feeling at the end of the day, or with us, the middle of the day, where you take those ski boots off, and you just give your toes a little wiggle, and maybe put on like runners or sandals or something.
It's such a relief almost, and it's almost like it's like going for a run. It's great to do it. You feel great, but when you get home, you hop in the shower, you feel dynamite once that's over, and it's a look. Skiing is a great sport. It's for people who, and I enjoy it. It's fun, but I do really treasure the moments that we get together and have a bit of crack,
And you know what my catchphrase is? Like, what could you tell me what my catchphrase is at the end of every day when we're up the mountain?
Oh, hang on.
Will I tell you?
Yeah, go ahead, tell me.
So my catchphrase is you never do the last run.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's yeah. Yeah, that's okay. But you say that like at the first run, like that's why I was like, "What's the last one?" No, you're right. That is your catchphrase. It's there's a little bit of apprehension in me when it comes to the last run because maybe it's just a superstition or whatever. But I do believe in that, so I'm always like, okay, fair enough. That's enough for. And you and I definitely go, okay, that's enough. Let's go down and we'll call it a day.
But you know what? If you think of skiing holiday, what I think of, like particularly when you're away with a bunch of mates, your memory, you remember the ski runs and the skiing, but equally as powerful a memory, I'm sure. My memory with you is, munching some cheese, with a glass of wine,
yeah, of course,
some grapes, watching the sun going down over the mountains, going, "This is the life." True,
it is. Of course,
and we were in a bigger bigger high than going down Black Slough.
It was
a good quality
cheese, and wondering what kind of dreams we were going to have later on. I think that's. But again, that's the joy of what skiing brings to people's experience is that you get time with your friends. The other thing is when you think about it. The food that we've had in some of these places, it's been tremendous.
It's true.
Great restaurants. And it's a big, for me, it's for anybody going on a ski trip, it's an expense. It's a true holiday. But if you're going to go to that level, you might as well enjoy it.
Completely. I remember one particular restaurant in Meerhofen. We got a recommendation from the Bannon-T in the house we were staying in, and we trudged ended up going through snow, practically up into a forest in the edge of town to this, log cabin. And we arrived in.
All the dead animals on the walls and everything.
Exactly.
Like, are we going to be next?
It was a real McCoy. We had our own room. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was fabulous.
And maybe it was just the fact that we had to trudge through the snow. But that, I would say, was probably the nicest meal I ever had. I had venison. And I'll never forget it. Is there resorts that spring to your mind, say, for skiing? Is there one that you go, if someone was asking for a recommendation, that you would go, that's a place to go to?
I would say it's Verbia. Verbia would be amazing. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed because they allow the skiing of every level. It really allowed you, like in the first day or two, I'll go down to black. I'm like, all right, that's great. I've done it, And then I'm kind of done with those risky, slopes. And then I'll do something a little bit more scenic, and I enjoy it as you go further into your holiday. But I do think that, my experience I've skied in the United States and the Northeast of the United States, and the skiing in Europe is much better, in my opinion, from the Northeast of America, because in the Northeast, you get a lot more melting and freezing, and you get a lot more ice, in New Hampshire, Vermont, in Maine. You could go to, Loon Mountain. You could go to different places, Black Bear up in different places, and it's a lot icier. There's a lot more. There's not as much powder and packed powder, and it's a lot icier in the Northeast of the United States because of just the location. And you learn to cut in, especially when I was snowboarding. You learn to cut in a lot more, and you have to and the blades on the board help you do that. But in Europe, across the Alps, it's totally different. It's much more enjoyable. It's less difficult, quite frankly, you know.
Is there somewhere in America that you'd recommend?
Loon Mountain is very good in New Hampshire, and Black Bear in Maine. And I think you need to go further north. You know, you go to Maine or Vermont, and anywhere in Vermont, and that's really, you're better off, you know, because you will get more packed powder. You'll get more powder. You'll get a much better because it's more altitude. But in New Hampshire, there's not, you know, Loon is the best, I would say, you know.
Okay. And in Europe, so you're saying Verbier for skiing. What about for the crack, for the Après Ski? Is there a resort? Yeah. Which would you C or AIC?
What would you think? Would you say St. Anton? What would you think? What would your thoughts be on it?
Yeah, that is a tricky one. Probably St. Anton.
Yeah.
St. Anton's the most party one, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I would remember it as being like, it was always going, you know. And Verbier is right there as well, but it's more of the older set now, you know, kind of. Yeah. But I think St. Anton is definitely a real party central, you know.
When you come down from the mountain and you get the boots off, and then you go to the bar or a restaurant, and you have it's either like, it could be a hot chocolate, or it could be a glühwein, or it could be a cold beer. Yeah. But there's nothing like that first drink after a day on the mountain and your legs are tired and you're content.
Yes.
Would you agree?
There's a sense of fulfillment because you've done something that not only exerted you physically, but also mentally, getting down a mountain safely and, you know, enjoying it and have a bit of crack. But it's that sense of accomplishment, I think, you know, and you could be having a nice hot chocolate or, you know, a glühwein, or you could be having a beer or whatever it is. But it's that sense that you've done something successfully.
You're alive.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think, that's true. Because when you're up at
and
those
you're giddy, you know what I mean? I love that giddy. You've left the gear away. You're still in your gear, but the boots are off, and it adds to it if you're still in the gear. And you know, when you're up the mountain, what I love is that you know, you're not thinking about work, or you're not thinking about anything, any issues. All you're thinking about is getting down the mountain, getting down that run.
It does concentrate the mind, and I think,
and freeze it at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I think it's that sense of maybe it's the caveman instinct of just pure survival that kicks in, and you can't think of anything else but getting down the mountain safely and making sure that, you know, you're there to tell the tale. And that relief when you're sitting at you're having your hot chocolate or you're having your beer or whatever you're doing, you have that. There's an exertion. There's an exertion that ends up with a wonderful sense of calm. It's a wonderful sense of calm and relief. No, I don't know if it's relief as much as calmness and success. You're proud of yourself for tackling the mountain, because when you're up at those heights, you look around and there's a straight line, straight down. Especially some of those black runs. You know, they're pretty straight down. And
even you think of Verbier, like they're it's famous for its off-piste, and it's funny. But Warren Smith from Verbier, who's also on the podcast, his WhatsApp photo is the Tortan off-piste run.
No way. He did
and
it?
I got a bit of a shiver because I remember the last time I was on that, I was going down it with our friend Finney.
It was like,
all I saw was skis and poles. The last thing he said to me was,
you guys.
The last thing he said to me was, "You don't have a Panadol."
That would have helped.
It's a straight off-piste drop. It's 1,000 meters.
It's straight down. Just went, and I don't know how you guys did that, because I remember being down at the bottom of I remember looking up, going, "Could that be them? Could that be them?" And it's scary as you know what, and it is straight down. And you guys did it. The two of you did it. I love the fact that Finney did ask for a Panadol. They're like, just. Yes, if that will help. You guys are going straight down the side of a cliff, but you guys did it, and hats off. I remember I was sitting there waiting for you, And I was just very impressed, and you achieved something, and that's,
the next time that we do manage to get onto the slopes, whenever that is, I can't wait for just a gentle, say, a run like in Morzine or Léger or something, a gentle run.
Yeah, just to bring back the confidence, but at the same time, there's nothing more enjoyable than knowing that you have the confidence to get down the mountain nice and easy, nice and slow, and nice and calm, and just enjoy it. And the fresh air and the scenery and being with your friends, nothing better. And there's nothing better.
Yeah. And I have to say, Léger, what I particularly love about there is when you're coming down, there's a lot of trees.
Yeah.
You know, like say in Verbier, it's quite bare. You know what I mean? If you think about it.
Yeah, it's
but in Léger, you're going through trees on either side.
Yeah.
So it has that cliched alpine feel about it.
Yeah, and that does remind me of the States, of the runs that you get in the United States, because they would have a lot of trees and there'd be narrow paths that you'd go through, but you'd have that sort of pine trees and it's really scenic and nice. And it is.
You must love that.
Yeah.
In America, those narrow paths.
Yeah. I think that's looking over a cliff edge on a narrow path is one of my biggest fears.
Actually, if I could just give a tip for listeners, if they want to see Sean, like just say you're on a ski slope sometime and you think, do I recognize that voice? If you hear like an Irish American cursing, going through one of these narrow paths,
that's
a good chance it's Sean.
Yeah, I believe that that you can manage your rage during these sessions, but it's sometimes and that's the challenge of skiing too, is you're challenging yourself and you're dealing with your fears, and I would be, and that's that sense of fulfillment that you talked about earlier, is that when you get down to the bottom and you sit there with your friends and you take the boots off and your feet are nice and comfy and you're having that hot chocolate, you just feel you've accomplished something, which is a wonderful feeling,
So my last question for you is, when you do that, you because normally when you're going down the mountain, it is paths towards the end. It is quite narrow often, and it's hard going and it can be icy. So when you do get down that mountain, have you ever had a hot chocolate?
No, never. No.
You keep mentioning hot chocolate.
I have.
I don't ever remember you drinking hot chocolate.
No, I just think in the morning I'd like to do it, but that never comes around. That never happens. So it's my intention. It's definitely I have good intentions to go. I'd like to see what it tastes like. That's all.
Yeah. Just to finish up, I remember our last time skiing. It was our last day skiing, and we went up the mountain, and a kind of a fog was coming down. And this was like 10 or 11, and we were like, no, not happening. Too dangerous. You don't want to do the first run of the day. So we went straight back down the mountain and into a restaurant for lunch, and then just as we're ordering our wine and our food, the clouds, the mist starts to disappear. And the mountain starts to clear up, and I'm looking up the mountain, and I go to you, Jesus, I think it's okay now to go skiing. You're like, no, above eye level, it's still fog up there.
Yeah, you don't want to risk it. That's why we're here to tell the tale. That's why we're here to tell the tale, because we made a wise choice. You listen to my advice.
Don't do the last run of the day.
Exactly.
Or on your last day, the first run.
Yeah. Potentially,
it's my new version.
That potentially could be an option. That's correct.
That's it. I want to thank all the contributors to this episode, and just remind you that I have some amazing guests coming up in the coming weeks for season 2, starting with Paul Wallace next Tuesday, who talks about the upcoming Six Nations and touring with Ireland, and especially that famous Lines tour to South Africa in '97. I would ask if you could please subscribe to Apple Podcast so a new episode will appear in your library every week. I would also really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review, as it helps others to discover this podcast. To find out who's on every Tuesday, please follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Travel Tales with Fergal. Stay safe and keep dreaming of future travels.
Travel Tales with Fergal.